Sills. I love starting the show off like that so much, and I have for 34 years. Big Sills. Big Sills in the Army. That's what we got going here, man. Big Sills in the Army. Welcome aboard. We appreciate you guys more than you know. You have so many other options. I want to thank each and every single one of you, even the guys that are the complete tools that show up each and every single day for 4 hours. Hell, the more of a tool you are, the longer you stay. Did you notice that, Tone? The biggest tools in here stay the longest. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I can't wait to get knee deep into your cheerleader coach's ass here in a second. Nick Soriani. Holy cow, man. This guy is the ultimate banner-waving cheerleader. And he lies to you every time he gets in front of a microphone. It's now becoming a weekly basis. Okay? I love that. LJ, Big Sills is a tool threat. How about that? Big Sills is a tool threat. Yeah. I'm the ultimate tool. I'm going to make a t-shirt of that. LJ, I'm going to have to give you some comps on that. Big Sills, the ultimate tool threat. That's right, baby. The ultimate, hey, I think that fits, the ultimate tool threat. All right. Before I get going here, and it is Dallas week. Oh, by the way, our spectacular friends at Hooters. I had a great conversation with them today. We thank them so much for being part of the program. We are giving gift certificate opportunities for you guys to win each and every single day. Tony's going to throw out a code word throughout the entire week, Tuesday to Friday. Then on a football Monday, we name the winner. All you have to do is identify that code word and email us at dansilioshow@gmail.com. Get a chance to win some merchandise and a chance to win some gift certificates like Michael from Pennsylvania and Herman from Delaware. Again, all 7 of the locations from Rhode Island all the way down through Jersey and all the way down to King of Prussia. We cannot thank you guys enough for being part of the program. Simple as that. Just put your information. When you see that code word, you email us, dansilioshow@gmail.com. We are now in Happy Wingsgiving, which is November. We're here at November 1. So good luck to you guys. We appreciate you guys coming aboard here. So the Raiders cleaned house. Before we get into Eagles and Cowboy week, is it me? This is where I'm going to agree with a lot of you about Bill Belichick. Hey, Tone, everyone, does Bill Belichick have the worst NFL head coaching tree from his assistant coaches of any coach in NFL history? I can't think of a coach. Brian Flores kind of got hosed in Miami. Bill was okay with the Texans. But the Charlie Weisses, the Romeo Cornells, the Josh McDaniels, the Judges, the Patricias, they've all been bums as head coaches. They've all been bums. He has to have the worst head coaching former assistants of anybody in pro football history. I really can't think of a guy who was a solid coach. I mean, what an absolute train. Every single guy. How in the world? Oh, wait a minute. Wait. I already know the answer to this stupid comment that I'm going to make. How does Josh McDaniels get 2 opportunities to be a head coach and Eric Bieniemy doesn't even get 1 chance to fail? Or Jim Caldwell doesn't get another opportunity to coach? How does that white guy, how does Josh McDaniels get an opportunity at 2 failures and he was just as bad as he was in Denver? How did that white guy, Josh McDaniels, get that second opportunity? It's crazy how that white guy, Josh McDaniels. I don't know why that keeps popping up for some reason. Josh McDaniels got 2 opportunities. I mean, seriously, guy, what gave you in the interview? So, you know what I want? You know what I've come to the conclusion? I don't want the guy who gives the greatest interview. I want the guy who gives me the most uncomfortable responses. Because if you interview great and you know what to say, that doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach. Look at Dan Campbell. So I want the guy maybe who's not prepared for an interview. I want a guy to come in there and answer what's on his mind and how he wants to run a team versus a guy who's been prepped. So all these guys know how to interview for a job, and when they get the job, hey, by the way, can someone do me a favor here? I want someone to tell me what Matt LaFleur's win percentage is as a coach. You know, the guy up in Green Bay? Someone give me that guy's win percentage. Okay? Give me that guy's win percentage. What's going on in Green Bay right now? Okay? And I'm going to make a point to you here. Let's see here. LaFleur's getting hammered now. Hammered. He's won 68% of his football games. He's 51-24. Does he have a higher win percentage than Nick Sirianni? Do you know that they're calling for his job? They're calling for his job. The guy's won 70% of his games. 70% of his games he's won. And they're calling for his head. How can that be possible? They're calling for a guy that's won. Nick Sirianni's got a little bit better of a win percentage than the guy in Green Bay. And they're calling for his head. %71% Nick has, and Matt LaFleur's got 68% win percentage. And they want to fire the guy in Green Bay now. How's that for you? You could take your win percentage and you could take all that shit that you talk about with coaches all you want. And I'll tell you, a coach is on a week-to-week proposition and sometimes on a year-to-year proposition. The head coaching fraternity in the NFL has to be one of the most unstable ones going. That's why you see high turnover at the end of every season. You see about 10 coaches get replaced at the end of the year, no matter who you are. Even Belichick. Congratulations to Jalen Hurts, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Great. He was very good in that Washington game. Okay. I'm going to get to Sirianni here in a minute because this ties into this. Would you ever – I heard – hey, Tone, I heard this on Sports Take. Okay? I heard this on Sports Take. So would you ever back a guy whose ratings out of like 40 running backs in the NFL, out of 51 running backs, he's ranked 39th, yards after contact 39th, pass protection, he's one of the worst in the league at 33. And you got a coach coming out today defending him, that he's their number 2 guy and will remain that. And saying we really like him, he knows he made a mistake, whatever. I'm not even talking about the stupid tweeting. I'm talking about defending the most non-productive player in your huddle. Why would you protect a guy who's not giving you anything? And then turn around and lie to you and make it sound like this guy's productive. And then at the other end, you keep a dude who's completely not a part of the – I don't even know why Rashad Penny's on the team. He's taking a roster spot that maybe a safety or linebacker you could have on your team, maybe another old lineman. I don't know. Maybe another kick returner. I don't know. If you're a head coach, don't you make a decision here? Get this. I guarantee you Howie Roseman didn't want Kenneth Gainwell suspended, because any coach with his set of brass balls would have suspended that guy for being a distraction and for not being focused at the task at hand. What coach in his right mind would sit there and have a guy active for the following week when he wasn't engaged and he was more concerned about what dumbasses were talking about him during a close NFC East game? By the way, this game this week has a lot to do with first place in the NFC East. Cowboys are coming out of a bye into the Eagle game, and the Eagles are coming out of this game into a bye. Cowboys have to win next week. If they win Sunday, they're in first place in the East. This is for first place in the East. And you've got a guy that's not engaged. I heard his comment too. Hey, if I suspended guys for making mistakes every day, we wouldn't have anyone to play. I didn't know you had character issues on your team. Okay? Regarding the Raiders firing, the one thing I will say about Sirianni is this: he may not be the wonder boy like McVay or McDaniel, but he understands people. Josh McDaniel has failed time and time again because he doesn't understand people. He may be smart coordinator, but he can never understand human component of coaching. Sirianni isn't a spectator. I'll tell you what Sirianni understands more than people, Tone: how to get along with those people in the organization and what he has to do. Okay? Sirianni knows how to get around a room. I don't know if that has anything to do with coaching, but that has everything to do with knowing how to get around organizations, something Doug couldn't do even. There is no doubt. And by the way, I think that is a skill set. Okay? I do. I think that's a skill set, and I think every coach has his own skill set. Jimmy Johnson never called a play in his entire head coaching career, ever. Never called a play. Never called a play. He managed talent and his coaches. And what he would do is evaluate everyone the following Monday, Tuesday. And he would tell them what he thought. But those coaches were all engaged, and it was just a way of him delegating strengths to people and how they were able to coach the players. The players felt more engaged. Get this. The assistant coaches were the guys that were kind of like the good guys, and Jimmy was the bad guy. There was a good guy, bad guy element. All great coaches have that. Do you want to hear something? One of the things that made Bill Walsh great, Bill Walsh was a tyrant. And do you know, guess who he ripped? This is everyone has a technique. Okay? Bill Walsh never ripped his players. He would go so knee-deep into his assistant coaches, he would just undress the assistant coaches. You know what the players felt like? The players felt like they had to play for their assistant coaches because they wanted to back their assistant coaches like McKittrick and all them guys. They wanted to protect them, so they showed up and played every week and did everything their assistant coaches because they didn't want to see Bill embarrassing the assistant coaches. That's another way of getting it done and motivating people. That's another way of motivating guys. Everyone's got a way of doing it. And again, Nick knows how to get around Howie, and Nick knows how to get around the locker room. That's a skill set. It absolutely is. Gainwell deserves to be benched, if you ask me. We are trying to win a Super Bowl. I have zero tolerance for dumb shit like Jay Joachim with a damn fan in the middle of the game. Absolutely, man, but there's no place for that. The guy's sitting in his basement right now with that Instagram thing highlighted on his wall somewhere, and he takes it into every room he has, showing everybody, look at what happened. I got game. Why? It's such a nothing burger in the world of life. But in the game of football, if you're not focused, dude, and you're the worst, and you're one of the worst, get this. Kenny Gainwell is the least productive player on your football team. He is the least productive offensive football player on your football team. And they play him and put him in critical situations. Hey, do you think that fumble had anything to do with focus? I do. If you're dumb enough to do that stuff with Instagram, how do I know you're not wandering in what your thought process is when it comes to your responsibilities on a respected play? How do I know that you know what the blocking scheme is when you already suck out loud in pass protection? I mean, this guy's numbers, he's one of the worst football players at his position in the National Football League. And the Eagles sometimes feature this guy in drives. And then you got Nick defending him. You don't have to defend. You're lying. That's not getting a guy's back. And by the way, think about how incompetent that is and how much interference Howie's involved in this entire move. You got a guy in Rashad Penny. If anything, you could have played him this week, gave him an opportunity against Dallas. It's not like you're replacing a guy that's giving you anything. And see what you got with him. He's so bad, Penny, that they're sticking with this guy and telling you he's good. Tell me this. Why in the world? That's not, you're not motivating. Kenny Gainwell, I've said this for 2.5 freaking years. He is a dude. He's a dude. He's not special. That old line and Jalen are special. Okay? To me, fumbles represent a momentum loss of focus. Yeah. I don't get why Nick falls on the sword for dumb shit like that. All he had to say was, we have zero tolerance for that. He knows better. I spoke to him, and then it's been addressed. Next question. Perfect. Shit. Tone sounds like an experienced NFL head coach. I don't owe you nothing. You fall on a sword for a guy who blows and lost focus and embarrassed your organization. Why? Why? What's the reason? To motivate? You're not motivating him. He's not good. He's not good. This is a front office problem. This is, and you know what? To Tone's point, this is what makes Nick good. And Doug couldn't take it. After Doug won the Super Bowl, he felt he had the autonomy to address shit like this. I guarantee you, Kenny Gainwell's not playing this week if Doug Peterson is your head football coach. He is not. Because any coach with his weight in gold is going to command that you're focused and you understand and you know better. The head coach does not have the ability to discipline his players. And I don't mean being a dick. I mean just the little things that you know better not to do. I'm not talking about walking around, your chin strap's not on, or you're this, but I'm talking about late to practice. I'm talking about tweeting or texting during the game of an NFC East game. I mean, that kind of shit there. That's the stuff that you look at with the little things and focus on what you're talking about, Tone, with focus. You're in the stretch right now of the most important part of your season. Get this. All the work you did could go away in 3 weeks. Everything. It's a week-to-week proposition league. You could be in 2 weeks, you could be in second place in the East if you lose Sunday. Did you ever think of that? You'd be in a wild card. Well, that's not going to happen. Okay, right? All right. I happen to agree. But Dallas goes in there like they always do, and they beat you. And then they win the following week. Dallas is in first place in the East. And the NFC goes through Dallas. That can't happen. Really? I didn't think losing to the Jets could either. I didn't think a player would be on Instagram in the middle of a heated game where you get this and you're losing. Maybe, hey, how about this? Maybe Gainwell wanted to look at what they were doing blitz-wise instead of looking at his phone on Instagram. And then the head coach today coming out falling on the sword for that asshole. And then telling you he's good. This is going to go right into my topic here. Ridiculous. Now, again, this is what makes Nick possibly the perfect fit for Howie. Nick Sirianni is not a great coach. Nick Sirianni is the perfect fit for Howie because he's not going to challenge his authority. Right here is the number one example of it. He's not challenging his authority. Any coach, I don't know of a coach I've ever played with or been around that would not have suspended or fined him. How about this? How about fining him? If you don't want to suspend him for the Cowboy week, fine. How about fining him? No. Really? I know guys who have done lesser deeds than this. And some would go, Sills, you really think being on your phone at halftime with an NFC East is a finable offense? Yeah, I do. Because it sets an uncool precedent in the locker room that anything goes while we're in game. Yes. You have no authority of your team. But Nick knows how to, as Tone says, he knows people. And he knows not to pee in Howie Sandbox. And Howie Sandbox happens to be the players in the locker room. And that's why he's not the Eagles' perfect fit as a coach. They get another guy in there. But he wouldn't be perfect for Howie. Howie's never going to put a guy, they're never going to put a guy in there like an Andy Reid or Doug Peterson or any of those kind of guys. They're going to fit a guy that fits Howie. Totally. Hey, he knows how to get around a room. That's not great coaching. However, it keeps continuity going. That's why you don't have any dust-ups, especially when you're 7-1. It's not that he was on the phone. It's the fact he allowed himself to be exposed the way he did. Optics and perception is everything, especially in an NFL locker room. Quite frankly, I'm not debating this conversation right here with anybody, really, because I don't give a shit what you think. Your coach falls on the sword for the dumbest shit on the planet. I can't take these apologies every week. You should answer it exactly like Tone said. Hey, we addressed it. We had a conversation about it. Next question. End of story. Gainwell has dirt on someone. Only explanation. LJ, I just, hey, get this, LJ. I'll tell you, I'll even go here. I'll even go here with you, LJ. Ready? If Gainwell did all that shit and he was second in the league in yards after contact, and he was like third in pass protection, I'd have a heart-to-heart, strong-ass conversation, but I'm not pulling him out of the Cowboy game. Just because of an I'm not having the rest of the team being sacrificed. But when you suck and you're a liability, and now you're a distraction liability, what's the point of you being on the team? Hey, that guy, your head coach, I'm going to say this. Here's the topic here. By the way, somebody posted something, and I love you, James, because it was a great topic, and I'm going to have a conversation about the corners, and everyone's like, Sileo's out of his mind. Well, okay, we're going to do that one too here in a minute. Sirianni is the coach of the year. Yeah. I would never put my vote for that guy in the history of the league, ever. Ever would I do that. That guy is a librarian. And he lies. And he lies to the dumbest people. The media. The players know. I would never vote for that dude. Okay, anyway, but how he could never coach anywhere else in this league. But a place like Philly that had strong GMs. I'm telling you. He doesn't have a say on his roster. Kenny Gainwell should be fined at minimum. Nope, Howie didn't want him fined. Had a conversation with him. It's all good. There's no discipline in your locker room for distractions? Seriously? Some of you go like, the littlest things matter when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. Let me say this to you. Gainwell is Debo. Too many feelings, no bite. How about this? Did you think you had a little bit of the distraction in the Super Bowl with Jonathan Gannon interviewing for that job in Arizona? Or Shane Steichen a little bit, knowing he was going to get the Colts job? Do you think that little bit of a distraction was enough? That it was a 3-point swing in the Super Bowl? That little distraction. Do you think that accounted for a little bit of not being completely focused on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? Ask yourself that. And of course, some of you will go, no, because you're just dumb. Will Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff hold back the Eagles from winning a Super Bowl this year? Do you worry more about the defense and the offense, or do you worry more about the coaches and taking you across the finish line this year? Who's your bigger concern? Who's your bigger concern? The players or the coaches? And if you say the coaches, then you have an imperfect team, like everyone else. Coaches. I'll say this to you. If Nick Sirianni loses a Super Bowl for the second year in a row, or he doesn't get this team across the NFC champ or to the NFC championship game, how will that look for him? Having the best rosters 2 years in a row and not getting it done. If Sirianni doesn't get to the Super Bowl or the NFC title game, you think the front office would look at some things and maybe not fire him? But eventually you got to do something. Like, you'd have to put some heat on this, right? Because he's not a real head coach. Then you're in a dilemma. I say that your coaching staff is going to stop you from winning a Super Bowl this year. I do not have any faith in them. All these training wheel coaches that you have every year is obnoxious. You have a Super Bowl roster, you have great players, and you have limited coaches. Why? It's exactly what I said. Hey, you know what's crazy? Tone said this the other day. Why in the world would you be doing an experiment on a guy like Trey Lance or someone else on the team like Gainwell or what have you, when you're in the midst of a Super Bowl run. You could also apply that to coaches. Why in the world would you construct a Super Bowl team and have the one component just so you can have control over the coaching staff? You'll never win a Super Bowl that way. You didn't win that Super Bowl because you had control over Jim Schwartz and Doug Peterson and Frank Reich. Those guys were power figures in those locker rooms. You weren't putting that shit past those guys. Ex-players, guys who had been around the room, guys that coached with some of the greatest coaches, guys that knew how to build rosters and coach players. There is no doubt that since the firing of Doug Peterson, you've had limited coordinators. And it proves out every single. I'll say this about Steichen. Steichen's a pretty damn good coordinator. He is. He is. He's missed. He's missed. Doug better. Hey, how about this? Nick better get to the Super Bowl. If that guy loses another Super Bowl in a row, it'll come down to the fact that you don't have the coach to do it. The shit today, it aggravated me. Falling on the sword for Kenny Gainwell is falling on the sword the previous week for Brian Johnson. Falling on the sword the previous week for Sean is dumb. Don't answer those questions. You're falling on the sword for Howie. Devin, it's not the point. And by the way, does he do some good things? He does the one thing that Tone says that's correct. He gets out of the way. He's not a coach who gets in the way. He stays out of the way. He's smart. I'm telling you, Frank did a great job at prepping him to get that job because he's doing. Do you not agree? He is the complete inside out of what Doug was when Doug was. Isn't it a completely different personality from Sirianni to Doug? Aren't they two completely different men? Andy Reid, two completely different men. Chip Kelly, two completely different men. That's a different type of guy that they've got in there now. You know what that means? He's interchangeable. He's interchangeable. This is how the front office is going to be the problem again for you. Howie is constructing a great team, putting together a really good football team. They have done a magnificent job at putting all the pieces together, except the coaching staffs. Isn't it funny? The best coach on the football team wasn't even put on the team by Howie. It was put on by Chip. Howie didn't hire the best coach on the staff. Chip Kelly did. I mean, you make this guy sound like this guy hired the best coach next to Jim Johnson and Buddy Ryan in Eagle history as the position coaches, because Buddy had a lot to do with Gang Green, is Stoutland. He didn't hire him. That's a Chip hire. Okay? Chris goes like this. Fat Seals is speaking shit. He knows that I don't have to be at the NovaCare Center to watch a guy stand at the microphone and talk about a guy who's one of the worst ranked running backs in the league with no discipline after being an asshole in the locker room at a halftime when you're down 17-10, more concerned about some dickhead in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Instagramming him in the middle of a battle where you got Dallas on the other side of that. This is focused on winning a Super Bowl, not being a stunad. I mean, honestly, do you really have to be a bug on the wall to sit there and make these statements? Every week, this guy's apologizing for shit that everyone knows isn't true. He knows how to get around a locker room. Is he good with players? Hey, everyone's good with players when you're 7-1. How was he when they were 2-5 and you guys were screaming for his head? Remember something. The Eagle front office took his play calling duties away. He didn't hand him over. So wait a minute. 7 games into his coaching tenure, he decided to hand over his play calling duties. Well, that's got to be one of the shortest coordinators in the history of the National Football League for a head coach to hand over in 7 games his play calling duties. He was told. Yeah, it really, seriously, a month and a half into your coaching, month and a half into being a head coach of the Eagles, they took his play calling away. Okay. No, he handed it over because that's what all coaches do. Coming off a 4-win team, you'll believe anything. You'll believe anything. You'll believe anything. I'm just saying, man. I heard that conversation today. I almost shit a brick. Like, why is he doing that? And then I heard the numbers that Rob was throwing out about Gainwell's production so far after 8 games at the halfway mark of the season. He's one of the worst players on the Eagles. He gives you nothing. Dude, put Boston Scott in there. Dude, I thought you loved that kid, Boston Scott. You must not. There is this crazy-ass infatuation with this guy, and he sucks. And the coach tells you how good he is. You're like, there's nothing he does that's good. Once again, people throwing the 7-1. The guy, Matt LaFleur's ass is on the line. He's won almost as many percentage games as Sirianni has. He's won 68 of his games. They're talking about firing him at the end of the year in Green Bay. Offense looks pathetic. They're not getting in and out of their way. Aaron Rodgers was right. The guy's not a good play caller. Or maybe it's because you had Aaron Rodgers there. How funny is it? People in here think that Nick Sirianni would have a 7-1 record if Marcus Mariota was the head guy throwing the ball around. That's how dumb you are. You'd be a 500 football team if Mariota was the quarterback of your team. At best. You're not winning those close games. You would have lost both to Washington if Mariota was your quarterback. You'd have lost both of those games. You may have lost the game in New England. You clearly lost the game to the Jets. When you take a signature quarterback out of your huddle, the coach is irrelevant. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes, not about the rooster in the hen house. It's not. An NFL team, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. And if you don't have them dudes, I don't care what kind of rooster you have. There's nobody in there, man. That dude can't make hay. When you don't have the right people on your football team at the right positions, I don't give a shit if you're Don Shula. I don't care if you're Chuck Noll or Bill Belichick. Look at Bill Belichick. You think Bill Belichick's any lesser of a coach today than he was 10 years ago? No. Doesn't have the personnel up there now. Nor does he have the personnel in his front office because Bill was dual. Seals thinks we're the Bears. No, Drew. Again, another dumbass comment by a dumbass. You're this close to winning the Super Bowl. It should be on a sense of urgency right now that everything matters. If you're the Bears, do you think I would be talking like this if this was the Bears? Really? The Bears are a decade away from being decent. They got a long haul, man. They got a long haul. You can't kill a team that's been awful for a decade. Now, when you see shit like New York not getting the paperwork in on time to Park Avenue on a trade, incompetence. The coaching record doesn't truly matter. What matters is, does the coach have authority in his own locker room? Does he have authority on Sundays? And does he not just go by analytics, but by gut? Funny. I'm identifying somebody that I won't bring up his name again because it aggravates some people. That's not Nick Sirianni. We need, how you doing? Tool threat, cue ball, I love it. All right, I'm going to get off this because getting your little panties in a bind. I know your feelings get hurt. We're going to talk about beating Dallas and how to attack Dallas here in a second. I love what James did. James threw out a topic. Let me get this exactly right. I really like the posting. By the way, James, I absolutely, and once again, it's a great teaser. It's over on the JAKIB Sports Twitter and over on my Twitter, and it's just blowing up right now. And we mentioned this. We mentioned this yesterday, and really a great job by James. Your cornerbacks have been exposed for being only center fielders. Everyone knows they can't play press, and that's why Matt Patricia fired Darius Slay in Detroit, which is true. And James Bradbury was fired in a cap salary issue in New York because he's also a center fielder. This is what we said. I also point out now, and I'll add to this, is it the scheme or is it the players that are failing? Because this is a scheme. And hey, I've never seen a place in my life when you hire brand new coordinators on both sides of the ball and nothing changes. You hired a guy from outside the building to come in and run a system that you had in place already. Most coaches, Jim Schwartz changed the entire defensive structure in Cleveland when he got the Cleveland Browns DC job. Dan Quinn completely took what Mike Nolan was doing in Dallas and turned it inside out. Fangio went down to Miami and changed everything Brian Flores was doing and changed it out and put his own system in. Not in Philly, though. You plug and play with coaches and players. Okay? You're running someone else's system. Desai's doing the best job he can. And I think he's not doing a bad job. I've said this. Okay? Is it scheme? Is it scheme or is it the two cornerbacks that are failing the Eagle defense? Is it the scheme or Bradbury and Slay? You're hurting our feelings is the only way we feel anything, Sills. Cue ball. It's sports talk. Relax. Relax. It's sports talk, son. I know you're kidding, though. But it's sports talk. If you're getting bent, that's a you thing. It's sports talk. Calm yourselves. Just remember that. Sports talk. I mean, we're not solving the Ukraine or the Palestinian-Israeli war here. Relax. Slay and Bradbury can't keep up with these youngins. Bradbury and Slay are washed, respectfully. I think a lot is in this. Dave, I think a lot is in the scheme too, which is hurting them because you're not getting pressure on the quarterback. Slay and Bradbury, listen, I would say this to you. The lack of pressure compared to a year ago, which was historic, I think, clouded people's judgment on Bradbury and Slay's play last year. Okay? Don't worry. We're the best team in the NFL. Yeah, on November 1, you are. You could be in second place in 2 weeks in the East if you lose Sunday. Eagles secondary about to get cooked. I'm gonna bring this up here in a second. I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of the scheme and also the players not being the same as they were a year ago. Okay. I look at Philly's secondary. Your secondary is not very good. You know this. You know this. Sam Howell threw for 400 yards on you. How could you be in denial of this? How could you be in denial when a guy who was on track to be sacked 80 times, 90 times, and he throws for 400 yards on you? Dude, Mac Jones threw for 300 some odd yards on you. How could you not be sitting here going, you see, and here, you're 7-1 heading into the toughest part of your schedule. You did all the right things except for one little hiccup, which it's not a big deal to me. You get this. And just to show you one more time about that Jets loss, now that you're 7-1 going into the stretch of games that you have coming up, I don't care about the Jets loss. It has no bearing on whether you're the best team in the NFL right now, November 1, or not, because you are. Just like when Kansas City loses to Denver, I don't care about that loss. Now, I do think they have a lesser team because I don't think they really have a lot of playmakers like they've had in the past. But that doesn't change my opinion of Kansas City. They always have a shitty game somewhere in the schedule where they drop a game like a year ago with the Colts. Okay? I don't care. I personally think Juergens being out is why our running game has been bogged down. I think the reason the running game has been bogged down is because nobody fears Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift running the ball. They fear Hurts in open space. I told you this at the beginning of the season. The deadliest part, there's two now. The deadliest part of the Philadelphia Eagles, okay, is A.J. Brown and Hurts in open space on 3rd and long. You can't defend that. And what's happened, get this, we've been chronicling this. You're going to have positions now going through these next couple games. You can't deny this. There's going to be way more turnovers coming up and less opportunities to rectify them. Why? You're playing better quarterbacks. Dak has had massive success against the Eagles. Okay? Patrick Mahomes has beat you 2 times in a row in consecutive years. Josh Allen is absolutely having a great year. By the way, I'll show you a little bit here with how people look at Josh Allen and how people look at Jalen Hurts here in a second. Just to give you some context of where I'm with Jalen and where others aren't. Okay? So you're going to see more turnovers if you're not running the ball because you're going to be throwing the ball more. Hey, what I like is how people think that if you throw the ball 200 times more, you're not going to expect any more turnovers. Jalen Hurts is going to have 12 plus turnovers, interceptions this year. If the players Bradbury and Slay and Reed Blankenship are confused on what we're asking them to do, so many broken coverages because they're not that hot right now because you're not getting the pressure on the quarterback. And some would go like this, well, we're third. Yeah, but you had 70 sacks and you were getting 6 a game. What you did a year ago was historic. It's the second best pass rushing front from a statistical angle in league history. You could have had 55 sacks a year ago instead of 70 and still finished third or first. You're missing the volume of pressure that you got a year ago versus this year. I mean, use your common sense. Well, we're third in sacks. That's not the point from a year ago. You had 70 and you were averaging like 6 a game. I mean, between the quarterback hits and the pressures, compared to this year, it's down significantly. That's why your corners are getting worked. And that's why they're targeting Dean. Every time they see that kid in there, they're going to go right at his ass. People posting that stupid shit about 12 tackles in the Commander game. And he was a token target by the Commanders in that game. Yeah, hey, get this. I had 12 tackles on a defense that gave up 500 yards in offense and 31 points. Did you have a good game or not? Did you really feel you had a good game? I wouldn't even raise my head in my team meeting. 12 tackles on a team that gave up 500 yards in total offense and 31 points. And you're going to walk in here crowing I had 12 tackles when they targeted you almost every time you were in the game. Give me a break. Devin goes, those tackles didn't matter. What did you miss what I just said? What did you miss? What did you miss? His 12 tackles, he played like shit. Boy, I mean, you look at the game way completely different, especially when Sam Howell lights him up. Sam Howell lit him up. Zach Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow, I thought they didn't do that bad a job. I thought they were okay. Every time that guy came in, they went right at him. Hey, man, that tight end, I didn't even know who he was. I'd asked yesterday, Tone, who he was. The kid was like really good. I'm like, who is that? I didn't even know Washington had a tight end. You're being exposed because of the lack of pressure by your defensive ends. Okay? You're not getting the same volume of pressure that you got a year ago. Graham's down. Reddick is getting back over the last 3 weeks. Josh Sweat, the last 2 weeks, has been really good, but not 2022 good. Okay? And the quarterbacks are holding the ball longer. Why? Because you're still playing that stupid-ass 10 yards off the ball center field. And that's why you're seeing all these passes completed by nobody quarterbacks. Use your common sense. Just watch the game. It's not that difficult to follow along. Well, maybe some of you it is. Okay? Maybe some of you. When you're off the ball and you're not getting pressure, that's going to cause your corners to not grade out high. Dean sucked. It got beat every time is my point. Yeah, okay, Devin, it got beat every time. You're right. On my bad. Sorry, Devin. Don't you get this? What's the kid in Dallas's name? Ferguson? He's not having a horrible year. You know, he's not having a horrible year, but he's still better than Dean. Dean won't be able to cover him. And get this. It's not that Ferguson's great. It's a mismatch. What's the kid Ferguson in his targets? I guarantee you this guy has like 7 catches in this game every time. They're going to go right at those backers. That's how I'm going to talk about how you go at them. Okay? This kid Ferguson, man, he's a complete mismatch for Nakobe Dean in this game if they start him. And he's not even good. Sills, I've been a fan 50 years. You're trying to convince us how bad. I'm not trying to convince you how bad you are. You're stupid, OW. I'm trying to convince you how close you are. I can't believe how ridiculous that statement right there you are, 007. I'm trying to convince you how close you are, that everything matters. You're not the Bears. You're close. Don't blow an opportunity like the Rocky says, like the Rocky movie says. You can't pass by this opportunity. It's the chance of a lifetime. You can't pass it by. I can't believe you can't hear that, but you hear criticism instead of a sense of urgency that you're close to doing something special. You know, if you win the Super Bowl this year, you validate last year even. Then you start to put yourself into the role of being, are you going to be like a small dynasty like the Cowboys were in the 90s? Because you start validating shit. 007 doesn't get it. Don't let it pass by. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. That's where my angle is. I can't believe you can't hear that. You've been a fan for 50 years and people talking shit to you like that? When you're this close, you're in a sense of urgency. You're in a sense that everything matters. Guys losing focus. I'll tell you this, a scoop and score is the result of you losing a Super Bowl. Ferguson has 33 targets, 25 catches, 237. I guarantee he has a big ball game. Guys, it's funny. You come in, you guys think that I talk shit here. I'm talking to you from the angle of if you clean everything up, you're going to win it all. But you just want to roll through it. Like some of this shit doesn't matter. It mattered in 22. I'm going to say this to you. If you finish the season 14-3, you would have had a better year than a year ago. Why? Because you play better teams and quarterbacks. Don't you want that? And then you have to do the most important thing. You have to validate a 28-win window. Boy, I'll tell you something, man. I can't wait to see how some of you would react if you had 28 regular season wins and you have nothing to show for it. How would you feel? Don't worry about it. It's okay. You sound like Cowboy fans. "28 wins you could possibly have. Nothing to show for it." I don't even want to ask Tone that question. There is so much work to do. 7-1, I guarantee if you ask those players in that locker room how important that is to them, it's important because they're ahead of the race for home field. Other than that, 7-1 has no bearing in the Cowboy game. Just like your no loss heading into your undefeated record heading into the Jets game had no bearing. Jets beat you. You think they cared? I mean, had no bearing. This is for supremacy in the NFC. In my opinion, too. This game, Jerry Jones needs this game on Sunday. Why more so than this is Jerry versus Howie. This is Jerry versus Howie. You know why? Let me before I take a time out here. I want to show you something here, and I want to tell you something here. What your general manager and even John Lynch are willing to admit, and Jones is not. You ready? Jerry Jones sits pat and says, we have enough, and we like our guys. Do you know what Howie does? Nah, I made a mistake on an edge rusher. Let me go get Reddick. Nah, I made a mistake at corner. Let me go get Darius Slay, Bradbury. Nah, I made a mistake at wide receiver with Rager. Let me go get AJ. He is willing to admit his mistakes by the moves he makes. Jerry's not. He falls in love with his guys and overvalues his players. There lies the complete difference between the Niners. Look at what the definitely wanted all this year, but how long did Peyton go before he won it all? Yeah, he happened to be in the era of Brady, too. It's like playing in the Tiger Woods era. Dirty D. Think about this, though. Look at what the 49ers in Seattle did. The 49ers were willing to admit mistakes and upgrade their roster that maybe potentially they made. Okay? Like, what was that guy's name that's with the Jets now? Solomon Wilcox, the D tackle. Is that his name? So they went and got a defensive tackle. Or they got Chase Young in San Francisco. Remember, they made a mistake in San Francisco with Solomon Wilcox? So what'd they do? They went out and they got another edge rusher. Solomon Thomas, that's it. They're willing to recognize their failures in the draft and rectify them. Jerry's not. Howie Roseman looks at some of his failures and absolutely rectifies it with a move. Our safeties aren't good, okay? He goes out and gets a Pro Bowler. Right? Dallas refuses to admit. So come Sunday, Howie's way of doing business versus Jerry's way of doing business. Jerry Jones has his name all over that roster. And if they get crushed on Sunday by the Eagles, you have nobody to blame. It ain't Dak Prescott. You blame Jerry Jones for that. Because the Howie Roseman way of doing business along with John Lynch, there's a reason those two teams are sitting atop the NFC. I don't give a shit what their records are. Every time they line up against you, they pound you. They pound you. It's remarkable to look at the difference in approaches. Now you see why the Eagles have had more success in the last 25 years. Okay? I mean, hey, I made a mistake. Let me get a corner. Hey, I made a mistake at linebacker. Hey, let me sign Kaiser White. Hey, I made a mistake at wide receiver. Hey, let me make a trade for A.J. Brown. Not Jerry. You're telling me you couldn't have got a big back somewhere or signed Fournette before the Bills got a hold of him? Or even fired Zeke and brought him back? Coaching is the only way we lose this game. Completely, Trucker. Absolutely. Absolutely true. And turnovers, which can be led by the fact that there's shitty play calling. True. Okay? The only thing that matters is winning it all. Some people in this chat can't see the big picture. we could be the standard like New England was if we pay attention to details. Warren, thank you for bringing some common sense here. Thank you. It really is like Rocky sitting in that room with that fight promoter, and you just don't want to take a shot at the title. And you let an opportunity slip through your fingers because you don't want to challenge yourself each and every single week or every fight. Rocky turned down that fight because he didn't want to challenge himself. He was afraid of failure. That's why he turned it down. He didn't have confidence in himself to get into the ring with the best on the planet and challenge who he was as a man. And to do that, when you get into the ring with people like that and into a game with people like the best, you got to bring your best. And when you bring your best, whether you win or lose, at the end of the day, it's a hard-fought game. And you did everything you could to win that game. Steve goes, Rocky's a fictional character, but the premise is for everyone in life. Most people think in fiction. They do. That's why there's more people in the stands than on the field. Because you don't get it. You just don't get it. You just don't get it. Challenging yourself. Being a man. Hyper-focused. You missed the entire premise of Rocky if you don't understand that that was the moment in the movie. That's the movie. The moment in the movie of Rocky is him there thinking he's going to be a sparring partner because he doesn't think much of himself. Because he's never had confidence in himself. Because he's always fought Spider Ricos his whole life. And the guy offers him the opportunity of a lifetime. Fear crept in. And he became afraid. He wanted to challenge himself. Well, when you get into, like I said, the ring with people like that, and you play in large games and meaningful moments, you got to bring everything that you have in your life. You got to be willing to die. Put your body and soul on the line. That's the movie. Some go, it's fictional. If more people applied that way of thinking, you'd all be successful. We'd all be. Takes a special person to have that kind. And this, again, some of you guys really think, and you come in here every day thinking that I bash the Eagles, and what I'm trying to tell you is you're this close. Don't waste the opportunity. That's where I'm coming from. You have a chance to become historic. Don't you want to be? Do you know Philadelphia hasn't had a dynasty in the history of that city except for the Flyers? You've never had a dynasty. Nothing. Baseball, basketball, football, nothing. This is a chance at making history. Rocky was never 7-1. See what I did here? Yeah, I like it. Sills, do you think our cornerbacks will cost us another Super Bowl? I think you got to get more pressure. Slay and Bradbury have been so underwhelming. It makes me nervous in big games against great quarterbacks. One thing is for sure, again, it's the pressure. I got to take a timeout. Guys, happy Wingsgiving from Hooters. Okay? Got to tell you, man, the iconic Hooter girls Want to thank each and every single person out there. And so what they're going to do for the entire month of November, all the great specials. Ice cold Coors Light, $2.99. Get this, 25 cents of every single purchase will go to a local charity as well. Hooters calendars are here, and you got $100 gift certificates in all the Hooter calendars. NortheastHooters.com. Go to NortheastHooters.com, and you can go into any one of the locations from Rhode Island all the way through Jersey down to King of Prussia. Lunch specials, Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 3. Boneless wings, happy hour, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6. 6 items, $6. Try the fried pickles. You'll love it. Seafood Sundays, half price. Get the buffalo shrimp. I love it. Military Mondays, 20% off for all of our men and women who have served in the military. Tuesdays, okay? Buy 10 wings, get 10 boneless free. And, of course, Wing Wednesdays, 1983, the year the place was founded. We invite you to go in to any one of the locations. NortheastHooters.com. That's NortheastHooters.com. And when you roll in this November, make sure you tell them Big Sil sent you.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.